or just quick video response about safety in Chicago. So somebody sent me a question asking, like, he just want to ask you if Chicago is safe, because his girlfriend wants to travel there, and can you give me some information and pointers? Okay, so Chicago statistically is known to be, I believe, the #1 murder capital in the US. They're always advertised as being the most violent city in America, to have more deaths in Chicago, shooting deaths in Chicago, than there are deaths in American soldiers in Iraq. So they call it Chirac, and there's even a movie that they created from Spike Lee that's named Chirac, that's pretty much highlighting the violence in Chicago. So that's what's being propagated out there in the media, and people are scared of Chicago. But Chicago is a great city. You know, there's a lot of places that you could go, and I've lived here pretty much most of my life, and that's where my business is. I go there every day, and the location of my business is a rougher neighborhood, and sometimes there are shootings, but that's usually between rival gang members. Like, there's a reason behind the shooting. It's not just like a senseless shooting. Usually it is gang rivalry that they will shoot each other. And there's been a few times where there's shots fired right next to my business, and I was even there, you know, during that time, and they even shot through the top of my father's vehicle, his van, and one of the bullets hit the top of the van, and, you know, a couple of people got killed in the convenience store right next to my school. But that happened like a few years ago, and the shootings usually happen like really late night, but that shooting happened, it wasn't too late, it was like around 8 o'clock. But there are sometimes shootings, you know, like after midnight, and you hear shots fired over there, and so there are shootings, there are deaths, but usually these places, you know, that this occur is not usually like the tourist attractions. They're usually a lot of shootings are like the south side of Chicago. If you just Google, you know, shootings in Chicago, a bunch of stuff will pop up. You know, a lot of the stuff happens in the south side of Chicago. Like, one of the really rough neighborhoods is called Inglewood, and just in the south side, and those are not areas that you would visit anyway, but there's a lot of shootings in Chicago. But there's a beautiful lakefront with a bike path that's worth visiting. There's a lot of museums, like the Field Museum is one of them, and then there's the Shed Aquarium, there's a Lincoln Park Zoo, there's, I think it's called the Northbrook Zoo, and then there's the Botanical Gardens, there's the Sears Tower, there's the John Hancock, there's the Trump Building, there's a lot of attractions, Navy Pier, a lot of attractions in Chicago, you know, to visit. What I recommend is, if your girlfriend wants to travel there, I don't know if you're going with her, but I recommend to be with her at all times. Like, a woman, I don't recommend to travel alone in Chicago. I recommend her to have a man with her to protect her, not just a female friend, but another man, or a man to be with her wherever she goes. That's my opinion. I wouldn't let my girlfriend go to a place like Chicago by herself. No, it's like, you gotta be with her, and you gotta be ready, you know, and you gotta be aware. I mean, sometimes people get robbed and mugged, You know, your phone, if you're on your phone, somebody might snatch your phone and start running. Somebody might snatch your purse and start running. I mean, she might even get raped. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, not too long ago, a woman got raped, you know, when she was coming off the train, but this happened around like maybe like 2 in the morning. She got off the train and the dude followed her and then he raped her. You know, they ended up catching the guy because they had him in the security footage in the train, but it doesn't matter, she still got raped. So if you're in Chicago, I personally wouldn't recommend to stay out very late, like past midnight, stuff like that. I'm not a bar and club person. I don't ever want to go, but I don't recommend to go to those places. You know, I feel things can and will pop off because, you know, you got some violent people in Chicago and they go to the bars and clubs, and chances of something happening, especially when there's a woman involved and there's a lot of ego and pride going around, and you're in a club and, you know, you got a group of people with their friends and they're going to try to hit on your woman. They might slap her in the ass, they might touch her, try to get with her, and then you get involved and they just beat you up. I mean, stuff like that happens in Chicago all the time, and stuff like that doesn't really make the papers because it's just minor stuff, but that's stuff that happens all the time. And that's more about just staying away from those types of environments during those times. I wouldn't recommend to go out there in Chicago late night like that unless you're prepared, you know. But even going in the bar and club, you're not supposed to bring a gun, and even if you did have a gun and then you get involved in a shooting, it's not pretty. So, but the other attractions, you know, like the ones that I stated, like all those museums, the bike path, and, you know, the restaurants, and, you know, the botanical gardens, and all these other attractions that you could visit during the daytime, that's fine. That's completely fine, going to the beach, whatever. But I don't recommend to go out there late at night because it just increases the chance of something bad happening. You know, and that's where all the violent people come out, and the criminals, they all come out late at night and stuff like that. Just be extra aware in Chicago. It's not a regular place where you could just let your guard down, where you could just leave your car doors open or leave your door unlocked, or just walk around with your phone like nothing's gonna happen, and just wear like a gold chain. Like, you know, people will snatch your chain, people will steal your phone, people will beat you up, people will steal your stuff. I mean, bicycles get stolen all the time. My bike got stolen, my customer's bike got stolen, you know, my customer's bike helmet got stolen, cars get vandalized. I mean, there's stuff like that. You always got to be aware in Chicago. But there are the good parts of Chicago that I mentioned. So that's my feedback.